Awesome. Welcome, everyone, to the late night restaurant show. That's my phone ringing, if anyone heard that. But, anyways, we got a great show tonight. Dominic can't make it. He's out there painting landscapes. He's getting into painting again. I don't know. I'm a big painter, so I have no beef about it. But I think it's interesting that he loves painting. He's a great painter. We know that he shears goats on the side, and he's a goat shearer. And he's just a great guy. We miss him tonight. So I hope Dominic, and he's traveling to Toronto tomorrow. So we all have to, hope him all the best on the flights. It doesn't get canceled, all those good things. But we have a great guest tonight, everyone. I am so excited about this talk because it's exactly what I keep telling everyone. Everyone needs a coach. Well, we got a coach. And an innovator, I tell you, it just doesn't get better than this. And we're going to talk about consulting versus coaching, what that all takes, training, development. I can't wait to talk. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to keep my intro short because Dominic's not here to bug me. So anyways, we'll be right back after this. Awesome. Welcome, Jeff. Now, do you go by Dr. Jeff?
The only person that calls me Dr. Standridge is my wife, and she only does it when I do something really stupid. And she'll say, "Way to go, Dr. Standridge." So
How many people ask you that question though?
every podcast I'm on, and I've been on 20 in about the last 2 months. So no,
Okay.
you know what? I go by whatever. You can call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay. I love that, Jeff. I love that. So, well, first of all, thank you for joining us on the Late Night
Sure.
Restaurant Show.
Great to
Sorry, Dominic is painting tonight, or he's getting ready for his trip. I don't know if you ever have a co-host. You got to get a co-host like him.
Yeah, it's rough. I heard you talking about Dominic and his capability. We have a couple things in common. So he paints landscapes. My wife has me paint outdoor furniture, and 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 he's a goat shearer, and down in the South they call me a goat roper. So
Okay. Oh, this is awesome. You know what the beauty about I find when you talk about podcasts, and we do a live to first of all, it's not a podcast is the other thing because I always
see that on the scrolling thing.
Yeah, we have one of the big rules we have is that we don't do another podcast like everyone else's. That makes us different, and we believe that ours isn't a podcast. So maybe one day we will become grown up and have a podcast.
Well, I'm happy and honored to be on your non-podcast.
Thank you. Well, it's funny because one day, like we are with the other podcast, but we just define ourselves as not the podcast amongst those great ones that are out there. But well, Jeff, we always start the show off as tell us a little bit about you, what you do, what makes you so great. And I can't wait to learn so much from you today. So over to you.
Well, so grew up in a small town in rural Arkansas, went to college, crammed a 4-year degree into almost 6 years, and spent a few years in healthcare, ultimately got a doctorate in organizational behavior and went to work in the business world for a publicly traded company. And I acquired and started companies all over the world, all over Europe, Asia, the Middle East, North America, and South America. And about 8 years ago, I started asking the question in my own community, why don't we have more startup activity in our community? We're at that time a community of about 60,000, 70,000 outside of our capital city. We had 3 institutions of higher education, 2 very large technology employers, but we weren't really spinning out any startup activity. So I started an organization called the Conductor,
Okay.
which was a partnership with Startup Junkie, which is a similar organization up in Northwest Arkansas, up near the WalMarts, the Tyson Foods, and what have you. And so we're what we call an entrepreneurial support organization. We provide free, it's funded by third party sources, free coaching, consulting, mentoring, training, and what have you to Arkansas based entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and small business owners. And it's all paid for by third party relationships. So it's paid for by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, the U.S.
No
Small Business
way.
Administration. Yeah. And so that's our entrepreneurial support organization. And we do some 1,500 coaching engagements a year. And then we started having a number of larger companies coming to us saying, look, we need the same kinds of help, innovation, strategic growth, coaching, consulting, mentoring, training. Yet we know we don't qualify for the sponsored or the funded services. So
Yeah.
will you help us? And so in order to keep the business models pure, the funded versus the billable consulting, we created a sister company called Innovation Junkie. And so I spend the most of my time running the Innovation Junkie brand, where I do coaching, consulting, strategic growth, innovation consulting with mid-size, small
Wow.
to mid-size companies. And I've been doing that now for about 8 years. And I've written a couple of books, 2 or 3 books, and so yeah, love it. Have a great time. And I said I spent the first half of my life making a living. I want to spend the second half making more of a difference.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Jeff, I have so many questions around this, especially when it comes to coaching,
Hmm.
like a ton. Like we're gonna be here all night. So,
That's
I
all right.
I I love it because I just started coaching. I've been consulting and working with restaurants for the last I'm gonna 17 years, let's say. I've
Hmm.
worked with thousands of them across the country, and I find the difference between coaching and consulting completely different. And I think a lot of people think they're the same. How different are they from your perspective?
The vast majority of my clients don't know the difference between one versus the other.
Hmm.
The coaching consulting purists will tell you that consulting is where I analyze the data, look at the information, rely on my experience, and I tell you three options of what I think you ought to do, and I help you
Hmm.
prioritize those options. But I give you the advice. It's sometimes called advisory services. I tell you, in my experience, what I think you should do.
Hmm.
Coaching, on the other hand, is I ask a lot of questions and I help you arrive at what you think your best solution is based upon your experience, your being immersed in the system that you're trying to affect, and I facilitate from you the best options, and I help you make a commitment to one of those options, and then help you hold yourself accountable to the execution against that. So it's a fine line, if you will. One is where I'm giving you the answer and consulting, and one is where I'm helping you define the answer, which is
Find the yeah.
coaching. To be very honest, in my practice, I kind of call both of them coaching, and I kind of call both of them consulting, because the fact of the matter is my clients hire me and they want to benefit from my 30 plus years of experience on 5 continents in 28 different countries, right? And so they expect me to say, well, you know what, here's something you might think about. And so while the purists say that there's definitely a discipline for coaching and a completely different discipline for
Hmm.
consulting, I tend to kind of go back and forth. But when I do, I often will say, I'll often be kind of overt about which hat I've got on. So I enter into the
Okay, okay.
conversation. Yeah. So I might enter into the conversation with a coaching hat on, where I'm asking questions and I'm clarifying questions. But then I might say, may I give you some guidance, or may I give you some advice, or may I share my
Hmm.
opinion with me? And then I switch into the consultant mode.
Do you find sometimes, Jeff, is that you have to go into the consulting hat, let's say, to get to the coaching side of it? Like, do you find that sometimes you have to go through there and you're like, I really want to coach them, but I have to go through a consulting, maybe
Yeah,
the
yeah,
door
for
of
sure, for
consulting?
sure. I mean, here's the deal: is that when someone hires Innovation Junkie, let me back up. When someone hires a consulting or a coaching firm, period, they're hiring the individual. They're hiring because that
Yeah.
individual said something during the sales process that created credibility and trust, and so they're hiring that individual. And so while in the longer term, I want to probably spend a little bit more time coaching than consulting, in the shorter term, I've got to help them get value out of what they're paying me to do, so to speak. And in some instances, consulting is a better way to get there. However, one can also consult by using coaching language. And so what I mean by that is,
Okay. Okay. This is good.
by using things that say, well, have you thought about this or have you
Mm,
thought about that? I've seen this done in the past. I've seen that done in the past. Using expert words like, in my experience, or what I've observed previously, are situations where this and this happened. What do you think about those? And then let them kind of choose. It's kind of like, and I don't want to equate it to raising children in any shape, form, or fashion. But I always found it easier when I told my daughter. I asked my daughter, versus asking, what do you want to wear to school today? I
yeah.
said, do you want to wear this or do you want to wear that?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but it is a fine line. Purist will tell you it's a completely different discipline. But I will tell you, practically speaking, as a coach and consultant, I go back and forth across both disciplines every single day, and sometimes in the same conversation.
Do you find sometimes that like do you find the client or the customer
Hmm.
getting like they're all different in a sense on how you coach them? There is no
Yes,
template. Am I
that's right.
correct in that? There's no template.
Well, there are some models that one can use,
Yeah.
for each individual conversation. So one of the models that I tend to use, and there's a pretty standard model out there called the grow model.
Yeah.
And I've adapted that to what I call the grower model, and it's grow hyphen R. And and
I love
and
it.
and so and so so grow G is, hey, what's the goal for today? What do you want to focus on today? What would your ideal outcome be? And if you say,
Okay.
what do you want to focus on? And they tell me, and I say, well, if we were to actually solve that issue for you today, what would it look like? So we spend a little bit of time at the front end establishing the goal of the session. Then we look at, okay, well, let's talk about what some of the options are. What have you tried in the past? How did that work out for you? What have you not tried? What are some options that maybe you haven't tried? What are some things that you've thought about maybe trying? And so we identify some options. And then the W is, well, now let's talk about what might be the best way forward. Of all of those options, let's pick one or two of those and let's think about what's the best way forward, W,
Hmm.
and let's think about why that is. And so then we get to GROW, the way forward. And then R is, okay, well, then what resources do you think you need in order to execute on
Mm.
that way forward? What additional learnings do you need? Is there some training you need? Or how can I best support you as your coach in that regard?
No, Jeff, do we see sometimes leadership having to use that grow model in leadership today? Like not as a coach,
Absolutely.
but as a leader. Same
Absolutely.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of coaching leadership. And I left out
Yeah.
the R. I said gal. I spelled gower. I didn't spell grower. So
It's
so
okay. We're dyslexic at the show, so don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So the R is,
That's awesome.
yeah. Pardon me. I forgot a letter. So let's talk about Gower, the Gower model.
The cow.
We've just
We
we've just created
created
some new
something.
intellectual property.
Yeah,
New
exactly.
intellectual property. Let's patent that. Let's copyright
Screw
it,
that
patent
R.
it. It's Jay's and Jeff's. We're going to take it to the market. The R. So G is goal. The R is, what's the current reality? What's the present reality? If this is where we are, this
And
is where
that's
we
a
want to be.
reflection,
Rather,
right?
yeah,
It's like
that's
a
that's
reflection too.
yeah, it's where are we currently? If we
Yeah.
want to be at X, then where are we currently? Where we're at C, right? And then what are the options? What's the way forward? And then what resources are needed for me to execute on those way forwards?
Do you find so I want to get into so we understand the model there, and then I find the model like the people that get the opportunity right now to start coaching with. One is a longer path to get to to get to those goals, to start
Mm-hmm.
setting that. And that goes back
Mm-hmm.
to that what I was mentioning earlier, is a lot of people I think were trying to put what I was doing and saying, okay, there's got to be a template. Let's template it. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe that's the way to do it. And then I get into it going, this one client is way different than this other one. This one's already like
Absolutely.
10 miles ahead of this one. Is that
Mm-hmm.
normal? Like they're always
It
at
is.
a different pace?
Yeah, unless you get, 5 companies in the exact same industry that started on the exact same day, which is probably not likely, right? So what I like to do at the start of a coaching engagement is I like to enter into a coaching a coaching plan for them. And I say individually, as individuals, let's talk about, okay, so we've entered into a 6-month relationship, or we've entered into a 12-month
Yep.
relationship. Let's talk about what your goals are for the end of this 12-month period or 6-month period.
And then you will
Let's
go
talk
back?
about, so we'll say, what do we
Yeah.
want the goals to be? And I actually had them describe for me, what will it look like when we have accomplished those 5 things, right? So usually
Mm.
3 to 7 goals for the coaching relationship. And they might say, I want to get better in my leadership. I want to grow my business. I want to do a better job of hiring people, whatever they are, right? And every single person has different goals. And so that's one of the things that makes it complex. But I say, well, then tell me what that looks like. And I try to help them put an actual measurable on each of those goals. In other words, at the end of this relationship, how are you going to
Oof.
determine that this consulting or coaching relationship was successful? What will be the outcome that you and I agree to on the front end that will help you to say at the end, yes, Jeff did help me achieve my goals, or no, Jeff didn't help me achieve my goals? And so
Wow.
we kind of put that on paper, and we write it down. And so that then we start working on the plan to actually bring those goals to fruition over the next 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or what have you.
How many people do you find people like, because I'm kind of thinking about this right now.
Mhm.
First of all, rewriting my book. So thank you. But how many do you find is uncoachable? Is that true? Is there people that you just can't coach that want to be coached, but you're just finding a roadblock?
So
It's hard
I
to get
don't
to?
I don't enter into coaching relationships with someone I find uncoachable. And yes, they exist. If they have called me and I enter into a bit of a discovery conversation with them,
Okay.
and I ask them questions about what's going well in your business today, what's not going well, what do you want to get out of this relationship, what led you to call me, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And every time I give them an idea, they come back and say, I've already tried that, it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. And so I have go and I dig a little deeper, and I
Hmm.
question a
Hmm.
little deeper, and have more conversations. And I ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you in having someone come into your business and ask you kind of probing questions every week or every month? And
Yeah.
and I might even give them an assessment or two on the front end. And if I just find that they are closed to the coaching relationship, or closed to development and change, then I may say,
Hmm.
you know what? I think that we're probably not a good fit. Maybe you need somebody more in this realm or in that realm. Sometimes I have CEOs or boards who
Yeah.
want me to coach with their CEO, or a CEO who will want me to coach with their COO or their chief revenue officer or their sales director or whatever. And if I've always got my antenna up when someone else asks me to coach someone else, right? When a
Okay.
superior asks me to coach a subordinate, for instance, because they may come into the relationship with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and I want to understand that on the front end. Because if they feel as though this is a punitive
Yeah,
relationship, or
it's like forced almost, right?
exactly, then I
Resistance.
want to assess from them how open they are to actually opening up to me and having conversations and what have you. And I had that happen one time, where the board chairman brought me in to meet with the CEO, and I made it very clear in my first conversation that, look, while the board chairman referred me to you, I work for you. and
Mm.
you are my client, and my job is to help you be a hero with your board and with your chairman. And that ended up in a strong 3, 4, 5 year relationship. And
Oh, wow.
we're while I'm not currently in a coaching relationship with him at the moment, he still reaches out to me for advice every now and then, and I call on him occasionally. In fact, we were on the phone together yesterday. So
That's awesome. So, okay, one of the things that I noticed as well, and hope these questions are good because this is great.
sure,
Thank you for
absolutely,
all the advice.
absolutely.
Is do you find people reaching out only when they're in trouble or when they're successful? Like, because the studies that I've done and stuff like this to learn about coaching was you don't necessarily have to be on a trajectory of going into, negative business or your business is going down the hill, or it is really for everyone, no matter
Yeah,
where you're at. Is
mhm,
that true, or is it
it is.
typically people are already like they're on that slippery slope?
Leadership, particularly the role of CEO, president, managing director, general manager, whatever the top person is in an organization, that's a very lonely role. And what I
Mm,
have found is that the most successful in any of those roles understand that everyone benefits from a coach. Everyone benefits from a coach. I have a coach because
I have one too.
I I struggle with some of the things that I coach my clients to deal with, right? And so everyone
Oh,
needs a coach, and even the best coach still has the same problems that he or she coaches other people through. And so, while I have experienced people coming to me when they're really in trouble,
hmm.
the ideal is that someone recognizes the value of the coach and they engage me through good times and bad. We make the good times better and we make the bad times better, right?
Wow. Do you find okay? There's so many questions. It could be a
It's
long
all
night.
right.
It's so good, but this is so good information because I think, especially in the Canadian market up here, this is new. Now, how open do you have to be, or vulnerable, let's say, to have a coach, like to accept that coaching? And as a coachee, how do you accept? Like, how are people saying, "Hey, I want to have a coach," without, like, do they have to be very vulnerable, or do they have to have an open mind? How hard do you find people accepting it?
So in my business, I don't really lead with a coaching relationship or a coaching contract.
Okay.
I lead with more of a consulting slash strategic growth system relationship. So I have a packaged strategic growth system process that I guide organizations and their leaders through. And part one of the deliverables of that 12-month engagement is ongoing executive advisory services. So
Wow.
I don't hang my shingle out and say, "Hey, I'm a coach. Come engage with me." I sell a consulting package to an organization that really involves the creation of a strategic growth plan, the execution of a strategic growth system, and as a result of that, I begin to observe things that are happening. As part of that engagement is a biweekly or monthly. It's the CEO's choice, a biweekly or a monthly meeting for us to get together on the phone and talk through challenges that they're experiencing on a regular basis. While I bring their team off site and do some consulting with them around building that strategic growth plan, I begin to observe some things around the culture of that organization. And I may come back to that CEO and say, "I've observed these things among your leadership team. I think we ought to do this kind of training with them or this kind of team exercise with them, maybe take them off site for a few days." And so we're constantly going back and forth where I almost become an extended member of
Their
of
team.
his or her team. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Wow. Now, how do you okay? Well, that leads me to another question. Do you find then their team is more acceptable to that leader or to that person that you're coaching? Do you see the changes within the organization when you start coaching them? Like, do you see not just the team but the overall organization improving? Like, how long does that take?
Absolutely.
Is that 6 months or is it a year? Like when do you start going, wow, this is really working?
Well, so I will tell you with one of my clients, the one that I just shared with, I was on the phone with
Yeah,
yesterday, who's not a client with me now. Once we implemented the strategic growth system with him and his
yeah.
team, and I started coaching him, within 3 months, he came back to me and he said, "You've moved us further in 3 months than we've been in 10 years."
Serious. Now,
Mhm.
what is that secret sauce then, Jeff? Can you share some of those things? Like, because that is incredible. Like
Well,
everyone would want a coach, and like I believe that. I think that's one of my things.
mhm.
Everyone needs a podcast, and everyone needs a coach. But
So
so
what this particular so I'm gonna compare and contrast two particular leaders, right?
okay,
Similar organizations. Um, what he needed was a plan, a 3-year plan to drastically move his organization forward that all of his leaders bought into, and all of his leaders, his executive team, knew what their responsibilities were in delivering that, right? And so that's primarily what he needed. He needed to really get his team to innovate and think differently about how they grew their business, and that's what we did. The other leader, she was a CEO. What she needed was for her team, she needed the same kind of plan, but she needed her team to stop relying on her to come to the table with all the answers,
mm,
because she had zero uh, freedom in her life. She worked 12 hours a day. She was fielding text messages and phone calls on the weekends, and she needed her team to step up and lead and stop coming to her for every single blip in the bump in the road, so to
mm,
speak. And so we focused on both of those situations, each of those situations for each of those leaders, and that's kind of where we are today. And both of them have said that it's been transformational. This one leader that the female that I talked about just got back from a vacation for 7 or 8 days and never dialed into her office, whereas and never fielded an email, never fielded a text message during the entire 7 or 8 days she was gone. Where in the past she
it
couldn't have
was
gone, she would have spent her entire vacation in the condo working.
yeah. Which
You know,
I'm guilty of that too.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
but it is
Well,
the
and
thing that a lot of people can't just they can't unplug from that.
that's right. That's right. So you're right. And so helping the leader come to terms with, is this really your team or is this you? And asking them some tough questions, saying, is this your leadership team that's having a hard time solving problems, or is it you having a hard time giving up the reins?
Mm,
You have to understand that when you delegate something to someone, as long as they get to the same place as you at the same time as you, how they get there might be different, and that's okay,
mm.
right? So we actually have a strategic growth system, not a strategic plan. Strategic planning has a terrible reputation because most
That's good.
strategic plans, they put it in a 3-ring binder. It's this thick.
Oh
They put it on a
God,
shelf.
Jeff, you're
They
so
pull it
right.
out in they pull it out in 11 and a half months and say, "Let's see how we did."
Well,
Blow it off,
you're
look at it.
lucky if they pull it out. You're
Yeah, exactly.
lucky if they pull it out. And I have done so many strategic playbooks,
Hmm.
strategic plans, playbooks, and to a point where I remember hearing some studies and stuff from people who just going, "Don't do it," because you never do
Well,
it. And I said, "You're more than right." Like I think the idea is maybe the process is more important than the book itself.
well, they say
Of
the planning is more important than the plan, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
what
yeah,
we
yeah,
do is
yeah, yeah.
we actually wrap an execution system around that. So we answer 3 questions with our strategic growth planning. Number one is, who are we? And that's
Mhm,
traditional mission, vision, values, etc. Number two, where are we going? So and when are we going to get there? So what's our 3-year vision or our 5-year vision, and what are the long-term targets that have to be accomplished for that vision to become a reality? And if those are the things we have to accomplish in the next 3 years for that vision, then what do we have to do in the next 12 months to get a third of the way there? And what do we have to do next quarter to keep it on track? And so every quarter we're coming back together as a team. We're revalidating, yes, this is the right vision. This is what we said we wanted to accomplish last quarter. We accomplished these things. We did these things. Here are the things we
mhm,
need to accomplish in the coming quarter. It takes about 90 days for a strategic plan to get off track. Something happens in those 90 days that gets us distracted, and we take our eye off the ball, and then we look up, and it's been 11 months later, right?
Do you find that that's true though? Like in the, maybe I more than agree with you. I actually think 90 days it might be shorter, because it typically shifts in a sense based on the results of what you're trying to do within your company. So if you see things starting to go south and you don't stick to what your, what that target is of that plan, I find a lot of people will knee jerk reaction, like they'll shift right away, say, no, 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 we
Sure,
got to go do this now, or get rid of the marketing. We don't need to do marketing now because we have to
that's
focus
right.
on this. Like it
That's
is,
right.
and then I go back and go, yeah, but this is our plan. We
That's
built
right.
this book. We're not sticking to it. We took the 90 days, or I think like 60, and thrown it out the door. And it's like,
Yeah.
but you put 2 quarters into building the plan, and it only lasted 90 to 60 days if you're lucky.
Yeah.
90 days, like that'd be huge. But you shift, and do you find a lot of businesses will still do that, or are they getting away from those and moving into this more
So,
fluid model?
so with our organization and the clients we work with, we build usually a 3-year plan,
Okay.
5 years maximum, because in many industries, technology enabled
Yeah.
industries, in healthcare are 5 years is a long, long time. 3 years
More
is
than, yeah,
ideal.
threes. Yeah.
And so we'll establish a 3-year vision, and our definition of a vision is a specific destination at 3 years into the future, and 3 years is a specific date, 12/31/2028, for instance, right? Might be a 3 year, or 2027. And then and it's written so specifically that at the appointed time, 12/31/2027, we can look back and we can say, did we arrive or did we not? Yes or no. The answer is binary, right?
Hmm.
And then we say, and here are the things that we have to accomplish for that to come to fruition in the 3 years. Here are the things we need to accomplish in the next 12 months. And we meet every quarter as a team off site. We look at what happened last quarter, and we look at what needs to happen this coming quarter. Then in the fourth quarter of the year, we look at what happened last quarter. Now we relook at what needs to happen for the new 12-month goals, and the Q1 goals, Q1 priorities. And so that's kind of our process. And we meet on a weekly basis, a weekly meeting cadence, where we are looking at all of those things. And are we progressing? Are we on track? Are we off track? Are we on track? Are we off track? And so it is truly an execution system wrapped around it as well.
Wow. Well, there's another, one question. I'm writing stuff down because it's so good. I have to ask this question because, like everything, like we have this vision of this being all perfect and everything, like it's a perfect session, it's a perfect coaching session. When is it okay to fail? Like when is fail part of the equation? When
Yeah.
things start to fail, like, is that okay? Because we always hear failing, you need to fail to get where you're going, it's a part of the process. Accept it. Not enough businesses accept failure. It's preventing people from taking risks or trying something different.
hmm hmm
How much is failing accepted into this process?
So what I would say is, number one, what's the definition of failure? I say that failure is only failure if you quit. Otherwise, it's just
Okay.
feedback that we use to adapt our approach. So, failing to meet an objective in a 90-day period, we look at that and we say, yeah, we said we were going to accomplish these 5 things in the first 90 days. We accomplished 4 of them. So we need to look at that fifth one. We need to ask, why did we not accomplish it? What happened that prevented us from accomplishing it? We need to, is it still important? Okay, does it need to carry forward to Q2? And how are we going to approach that particular deliverable in Q2 so that we don't fail to meet it as well at the end of Q2? So we take it as feedback, right? So absolutely, failure's allowed. Failure's only failure if you stop. Otherwise, it's only feedback, right? Um, and so we think that that's really vitally important, so to speak. And the other thing
Now,
I would say is a good quality strategic plan isn't a substitute for leadership judgment. It creates a framework within which leaders can make better decisions. So, for instance,
mm,
let's say we build this 3-year vision. This is where we're going. This is our strategy. This is our plan. These are our long term targets, our short term 12-month goals, our quarterly priorities. These are the key performance indicators we're going to measure on a weekly basis. And we're tracking down the path. And let's say that we're 18 months into that 3-year plan and a new opportunity presents itself. And we're not sure if that opportunity is something we ought to pursue, or is it a shiny object that could get us distracted. And so the strategic growth plan we have presents rather the framework against which we need to assess that new opportunity. And so we may ask ourselves, and the first thing we should ask ourselves is, where does this new opportunity fit within our strategic plan? And one answer could be, man, it fits squarely within our strategic plan. Not only that, we think it could help us accomplish our strategic plan much more easily. Well, then the clear answer is, well, then yes, we need to pursue it. The other answer could be, yeah, you know what? This doesn't fit within our strategic plan. In fact, it's a distraction, a potential distraction from where we said we want to go. And it's actually counter to where we said we want to go. And it's going to get in the way. And so in that instance, we need to put it aside and not deal with it right now, not pursue it right now. A perfectly good answer. The third potential answer could be, yeah, this doesn't really fit within the strategic plan that we articulated 18 months ago. But when we created this plan, we didn't anticipate these two changes happening in the industry or happening in the market. And so maybe we need to step back and reevaluate our strategic plan. We know we're only 18 months into a 3-year plan, but the market's changed. We've had COVID, or we've had a new technology that's come to play, or we've had a new competitor enter the market. And we didn't anticipate these changes when we built the plan 18 months ago. So maybe we need to use this opportunity as the impetus to step back and reassess our plan, and let's establish a new 3-year plan based upon the market realities that we're experiencing today.
So good. It's so good. But I think that's the thing that I find a lot of people get stuck into those plans. That just happened recently. And my comment was, well, I think when you execute, you have to allow for flexibility. You
Sure.
have to allow for those things to adjust and to
Mhm.
find or bring on new projects into that plan, or like you said, add into them. Was it this way when we started the process?
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
necessarily. And I find a lot of the times that either people are very firm in that, or they're the opposite and they don't stick to it. I think it has to be a kind of a mix of each. Like, would you say that's the case? Like, you
It
have to
is.
be
It
a
is.
little bit
It's
flexible. You have to be adjustable and move. Because like the in our industry with AI right now, it's changing our industry every week. Like,
Mhm.
it's
For sure.
crazy.
And leadership is not a science. Leadership is an art. Leadership requires
God,
making
that's good.
judgments. It requires making judgments about people. It requires making judgments, bless you. It requires making judgments about opportunities. And so what we want to do is we want to provide frameworks to enable leaders to make better decisions, to make decisions more consistently, to make decisions more at a higher quality, but they're still going to have to make judgments and decisions day in and day out. And so flexibility is absolutely key. We don't engage in any strategic growth planning sessions without the CEO and his or her direct reports. If it's a VP of the organization who's
Yeah.
wanting us to do it for his team, we say, you know what, we can help you kind of think through some things, but absent the organization at the CEO level finding importance in this and finding significance in this, then we're going to struggle, you're going to struggle, and you're going to be paying us for suboptimal results. So we really need to have the CEO and his or her direct reports involved to build a quality strategic growth plan for the organization and to commit to implementing the strategic growth system.
How important it is to always have that CEO part of it. Like,
Vital.
it's vital, right? Like, it's a big
Mhm.
part of it. They make the decisions at the end of it.
Yeah, it's vital. Now, if the chief revenue officer wants us to come in and help him look at his sales organization, and do some sales strategy and what have you, one of the first things we're going to ask is, okay, can you provide us with a strategic plan for the organization? What's the go to market strategy? What are the core products and services? So we're going to ask for some of that stuff, and if it doesn't exist, then we're going to advise that chief revenue officer, hey, look, we can probably help you make some incremental improvements in your sales team. But where you're really going to get order of magnitude changes or more order of magnitude increases is if we start with the strategic direction of the organization and then we adapt your revenue organization to match that.
How important? Okay, I'm going to shift just a little bit here,
Sure.
because this is so good. How important is in the process of coaching and shifting and working with our operations and customers and clients that you include innovation, because you have innovation junkie, you have all this,
Mhm.
you have the very culture of innovation. Like, I'm an innovator. That's all I do. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm always innovating a new strategy or a new plan or a new way to look at business. How important is that a part of the coaching process?
So we usually recommend what we call an innovation sprint.
Okay.
So where we might take the executive team off, and sometimes it's the executive team and all of their direct reports. So it might be 12 to 25 or 30 types of people. So senior VPs, director level type folks. We might take them off site and we take them through a day long, sometimes a day and a half process where we say, we issue them a challenge. What one problem or opportunity, problem being negative, past tense, pain oriented, not enough of a good thing or too much of a bad thing, rather, versus an opportunity, uh, forward looking, future tense, gain oriented words, not enough of a good thing, right? So sometimes it's two sides of a coin. We're trying to solve a problem or we're trying to take advantage of an opportunity. So we ask them, what problem or opportunity, if you solved it or seized it, would be a complete and total game changer for your organization? And so we might spend some time, an hour or so, just doing some open brainstorming. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we did this? Or we have too much of this or too much of that, or we don't have enough this or not enough that. And so we kind of categorize them into problems and opportunities. And then we might do some down selecting. And we say, once we've got the list and we've clarified what they are, we might say, tell me about, what do you think are the most important of these? In other words, if you had the opportunity to pick three of these, what would be the three that you would pick? And so we would have people vote, and through that voting process, we would down select, and we might end up with five items, three problems and two opportunities. And so then we might take that group and we say, all right, we're going to create five teams, and we're going to put you on these five opportunities. Each of you has, three teams on three problems and two teams on two opportunities. And then we take them through a process to get really crystal clear about what the problem or the opportunity is, to actually write a problem statement or write an opportunity statement, do some quantitative validation of that problem. In other words, gather some credible facts and statistics that substantiate that problem actually exists, the magnitude of the problem. Then we might have them do some qualitative validation with some key stakeholders that experience that problem to the greatest degree. And then we might have them put together some rudimentary solutions and present those at the end of the day. And we use that information then to actually fuel the strategic growth planning process. So we say, all right, so we're going to do some strategic growth planning about where are we going as an organization. Your executive team has already identified these three problems and these two opportunities that we need to address. So let's make sure that we keep those in mind as we start the strategic planning process or strategic growth planning process.
Wow. I think it's so important to. I wrote down opportunity statement because I love that. I absolutely love that. Like, there's, I don't know where to start here. When I think about the opportunities that are out there in leaders today, and because I come from the world of creativity, like I have a bachelor of fine arts degree, a painting history, all that stuff. I have the opposite. I find with a lot of business people is they're not innovative or creative, and I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes I'm on the other side of the brain. I do try to blend a little bit because I think, like you said, it's almost like you have to work at it to be a leader, or like you have to
Yeah,
work at it on the, like, it's like a muscle, right?
for
And
sure.
a lot of people have referenced it that sometimes that way. But how do you find when you're talking about putting people into groups and you're getting to think differently? Does that stick? Does that stay with them, or do they just do it for that moment and we did the exercise and they go back to their habits? Do you see them changing?
So we usually build some development around that, some innovation training, and some human centered design thinking or human centered design. Design thinking. The whole concept of design oriented innovation actually comes from the world of the creative arts, quite frankly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we take them through some design thinking, some design training. We actually recommend that they go back to their departments or their teams, and they use some of this material to do some next level of innovation, so to speak, to say, okay, guys, we identified this is our strategic growth plan, and we hear the problems and opportunities we want to seize at the enterprise level. Let's talk about how we can contribute to that in our team or in our department, and let's utilize the same process. And I usually offer to come in and run a session or two with that next level of the organization as well, to try to help them, take them through the process. But granted, in most organizations, when they're at their best, they carry some of that stuff forward, and when they're at their worst, they tend to forget about it. And so,
And they go
you know,
back to those old habits
yeah,
almost, right?
yeah, a lot of times.
A lot of times, but I think it is important, especially when you think about it, like our industry, our food service and hospitality industry. We tend to have a lot of people that don't are not big change advocates. Like they're not
Yeah,
there all the time. Look, they like the way we've been doing it this way for the last 30 years. Why change? And then we
yeah,
see this huge abundance of restaurants, with the old only 85% make it their third year, and like it just gets worse and worse and worse. And we hear about the closure rates or the unsuccessful rates. So that's why we don't do podcasts that anymore around those subjects, because it's
yeah,
just the same thing over and over again. Here's
yeah.
what you're doing wrong. And I'm interested in this behavioral change, but also the innovation side of how do we get operators to think differently or leaderships to think differently, and not in the sense that always to be out there. Like I say that like lightly on the thinking differently, but to look at things through a different lens, and
Hmm.
to look at the opportunities, like you said, the opportunities that are out there, and to focus on what you can do to contribute to change too. Because I find a lot of them get into this mindset, well, I'm not creative, I'm not innovative, and this is the way it is. And then you
Hmm.
put them through the course or the training, and then they come back, and guess what? Six weeks later, 6 hours later, they're back to those old habits. And I'm like, I find that leaders in today's world sometimes have a title, but don't earn the title, or keep working on that title that they've gotten, in a sense, on the practices. Do you find that a lot
Yeah,
too when you get into
yeah.
this
If
coaching area?
For sure, if you go to my personal website, jeffstandridge.com, you'll see the banner on that website says leadership and innovation are inseparable. And what I mean by
That's
that
good.
is, yeah, that's what the banner on my website says. Leadership and innovation are inseparable. What I mean by that is, if I'm leading, if I'm leading people, but I'm not innovating, I'm not
Yep.
challenging the status quo and pursuing excellence at different levels, I'm not going to be leading for long. Someone will take my place. Someone will come in, challenge the status quo, and do a better job of innovating and leading than I. By the same token, if I'm innovating and I'm challenging the status quo, and I'm disrupting the organization, but I'm not leading people and influencing people to adopt those changes or those proposed
Yep.
changes, then those innovations are for naught. And so leadership and innovation are really, they're inseparable from one another, quite frankly.
And that must be, do you find large organizations, small organizations understand that?
Organizations don't, individuals within the organizations do, and that's kind
Do
of the basis of change management. I came to the world of entrepreneurship as an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is someone who does entrepreneurial things within the safety net of a corporate salary, and I did that. I started a company in Poland for a larger company, and I grew it to 350 people. I did the same thing in China, right? And I came to the world of innovation by being a corporate change agent. And those being a corporate change agent is not it's the same skills and disciplines as being an innovator. Being an entrepreneur are the same skills and
Yep.
disciplines of being an entrepreneur, right? And so I found those transfer very, very nicely. But what I say, there's a process to drive organizational change, and there's a process to disrupt the status quo, and you have to pursue both of those together. I actually define innovation as planned change directed at more efficient ways of doing things than the way we're currently doing. And so planned change is a critical element of that. If it's not planned, then we're going to have a hard time making it stick.
Yeah.
And we're constantly asking the question, what MIT called the real win worth question. Is it real? Can we win? And is it going to be worth the effort? Is the opportunity real for this innovation? Is the problem that we're trying to solve real for this innovation? Is it going to be worth the effort? How much effort's it going to take? How much investment's it going to take? And is it going to be worth the effort? And can we win by executing it?
Well, Jeff, like this has been one of my favorite shows in a long time. Not this,
Well,
the other
good.
ones, but just it's so valuable what you're talking about here, and I just want to thank you. And so let's get down to how can people find out more about what you do and how we can
Sure.
read your books, all the stuff. Where do they go?
Well, all of my books are on Amazon, so you can go there and just search on Jeff Standridge. I am very active on LinkedIn. And again, Jeff Standridge is my handle on LinkedIn. Jeff S at innovationjunkie.com. Jeff S at innovationjunkie.com. Or my own website is jeffstandridge.com. And I'd be honored to interact with any of your listeners that want to get in contact.
Well, I might be calling you myself because this is incredible.
Hey,
And
that's good.
I honestly just want to thank you for spending the time with us tonight. Don't go anywhere as
Sure.
we wrap up here, but just honestly, I can't thank you enough. Like this stuff, and we just got touched. We're gonna have to have you back many times.
Hey,
I think we are
let's
gonna
do
have
it.
that 3-part series. Well, it's just I think the part, like the big thing I get like I get goosebumps on this stuff is we have an opportunity to really navigate the industry and the business world and what we're doing out there,
Mhm.
and it's not a lot. I find maybe I'm wrong here, but what I find, it's not, as they say, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to develop these strategies or ideas. A lot of it's discipline, commitment. It's thinking creatively. And when did we, like, before we wrap up here, when do some people lose that? Like, when do people stop being creative or innovative or um, getting too comfortable and saying, "Nah, I'm the leader already. I got the big title. I don't have
Mhm.
to worry about listen to podcast or becoming better at what I do." When does that stop? Like, do we just get
I,
comfortable?
I haven't found it. I haven't found the stopping point in my own life.
I was going to say I haven't
You
either.
know, yeah, and I say, no, it's not rocket science. It's harder.
It's
It's
harder. See,
harder.
oh,
And the reason I say that is because it's part science. Rocket science is all science. It's
yeah,
100% science. You're dealing
mm,
only with facts, right? In organizational change, in organizational innovation, you're dealing with part science, you're dealing with part human behavior, you're dealing with culture, you're dealing with and we could spend an entire episode talking about the culture of excellence, which I'd
I
love
was
to
going
do
to say,
sometime with you.
yeah, we will. We'll
But
have
we're
you back
talking
for
we're
that.
talking about human behavior, we're talking about organizational behavior, we're talking about culture, we're talking about external forces like markets and competitors. We're talking about technology coming in and innovation, external innovations that are affecting us from the outside in. We're talking about internal innovations from the inside out. And so it's not rocket science. It's harder. It's way
It's
harder.
harder. I love that. Well, Jeff, thank you for your time.
You
This has
bet.
been like honestly incredible. Please don't go anywhere as we wrap up. But thanks again to everyone else that's going to join us or listen to this podcast, not a podcast, listen to our show. And Dominic, you missed a doozy. You missed a big one. And Jeff, I just want to thank you so much for your time.
Hey, it's been my pleasure and it's been an honor as well. And I'd love to connect with you again or with any of your listeners as well.
Awesome. We'll put your information up on our pod here. So thanks so much, Jeff. Take care.
Yes, sir.